Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And today's little video is going to be about waking up. A lot of the people that watch my videos do so because they recently figured out that something that they have passionately supported for their entire life was nothing but an elaborate hoax. Being lied to hurts, but it isn't anything new. From a very early age, we learn to just deal with it. But we're talking about a very special kind of lie. We're talking about the kind of lie that we put so much faith in that it became part of what makes us who we are. It becomes a part of our core belief system. We may have supported this lie to such an extent that we shunned or even abused others that didn't share our belief in the lie. The discovery of such a hoax can be compared to a rape. Whatever deceptive thing you have recently become aware of, you may feel that your mission from now on should be to make everyone else aware of it as well. That may be a mistake. A better use of your time and resources would be to complete your awakening. You have just learned that your core belief system can be compromised. You now understand that it is possible that who you are as a person can at least partly be based on deception. Very few people will ever reach this level of awareness. Now that you are waking up, you should make every effort to find out if some other part of what makes you who you are is not also based on deception as well. In other words, you don't want to put a whole lot of effort into exposing a crooked political leader only to steer people into electing one that is even worse. Now that you are aware of the lie, it is time to learn the truth. And yes, you can know the truth. Not just some truth, but all truth. Or at least enough truth to get the big picture. We all want to help others, but first we have to help ourselves. This is a unique time in history, and channels like the one that you are watching right now are a very recent phenomenon. There have always been those that didn't believe in everything that they were being told, but since the folks doing the telling had a monopoly on information, there wasn't much chance that any of them halfway awake people were ever going to become fully awake. And the possibility that they would somehow be able to help someone else to become awake was even less. The time that we are living in has come to be known as the information age because there has never been a time in history where so much information has been available to so many people. Good information as well as bad. Whenever I share some bit of truth with my family members, they always respond with the phrase, "Where did you get that from? The internet?" The inference being that good, reliable information can only come from well-established information control systems. My response to such a statement is that the networks all belong to the same small group of people. I wouldn't want to get everything that I know from a small group of good, decent people, much less a small group of evil, insanely wealthy people. People don't get rich and powerful by always telling the truth. They get that way by always telling whatever story is necessary to make them rich and powerful. That doesn't mean that poor people are immune to lying. But if you want accurate information in order to make important decisions, you need to have more than one source. If you want to find out what is the best religion in the world, you don't just ask the Pope. If you want to find out what is the best career choice, you don't just ask an army recruiter. And if you want to find out what is the best place to take a vacation, you don't just ask New Jersey's tourism commissioner. You ask everybody that you can from as many religions, professions, and parts of the world as you can. Any of us can be fooled, but there are things that we can do to reduce the risk. What is ridiculously sad is that everything that we ever needed to wake us from our sleep has always been there. Even before there was an internet, civilization's controllers were giving it to us all along. When we were being told that the Vietnamese were going to take our freedom, make us communist, and force us to all speak Chinese, They would back it up by showing us black and white footage of a bunch of indigenous rice farmers running from their burning grass huts with U.S. troops pointing machine guns at them. Or we would be shown some very gaunt people pushing bicycles loaded with straw baskets through the jungle. At the time, we had the same amount of weapons as all of the rest of the planet through all of human history combined. How gullible can we really claim to be? And when we lost the war, nothing happened. None of us are now speaking Chinese as we were told. And when elections come around, our owners still allow us 2 spokesmodels to choose from instead of just one. So the communist threat must have been a lie as well. But we have enough current problems to wake up to that we really don't need to rehash all of the things that we slept through previously. That being said, a lot of what we consider to be current problems have been current problems for thousands of years. This general awakening may be a recent phenomenon, but the fact that the world is bad is not. None of this is really new. If you recognize that your way of life is getting worse through no fault of your own, you may feel that somebody else, somewhere else, must be doing something wrong. So you want to find out who that somebody is, expose them for what they are, and make them pay. But really, it isn't anyone's fault. The way that the things are going has always been a part of the original plan. The fact that all civilizations collapse is not a secret. Every empire that has ever existed has been based on consumerism. It is no secret that the reason that unsustainable systems are called unsustainable is because they cannot be sustained. We know that the problems that we are facing are no longer just leading to more problems. This time around, our problems are leading to total catastrophic failure. When the first guys shook hands on the deal to destroy the world, they were okay with it because they knew that it would be a very long time before anyone had to pay the piper, so to speak. Much longer than they would live, and even longer than their children would live. But the guys that are shaking hands on these deals today are building bunkers and stockpiling them with beans and rice. Many who realize that the political party that is in power is unable to fix this mess turn to the party that isn't in power in the hopes that they will somehow get things done. This has been going on ever since the first bully was given the privilege of being the king. If you were to graph the party affiliations of the rulers of the planet, it would look very similar to a sine wave. The folks in charge that actually do the real picking use a modified version of the system known as good cop, bad cop. The good cop, bad cop method of subduing citizens is to have one cop question a citizen in a threatening manner, and then follow that with a comforting cop. This gives a citizen what he mistakenly believes to be a choice of going to jail or not going to jail, when in fact, the only real choice that he is being given is the choice of which cop is going to put him in jail. The modified version that the oligarchs use on us is to have each of their spokesmodels threaten half of the citizenry while comforting the other half. As transparent as this system might seem, it is actually quite effective, at least for the 30 or 40 years that we are healthy enough to continue being their slaves. Of course, there are always a few citizens that figure the whole thing out before they die. So for this tiny minority, millions of dollars are spent to hire a third actor. The guys that hire him have no intention whatsoever of letting him be the king, but they are willing to foot the bill in order to give hope to the people that have caught on to the fraud known as the two-party system. But for some reason, they always hire the best speechwriters for this third guy. I like to call him the distraction candidate. His job is comparable to the pretty girl that is always on stage while a magician is loading up his rabbit hat. As far as being politically awake goes, Everybody that participates in the political system probably considers themselves to be awake. That is why they participate. However, the people that vote for one of the two primary candidates rarely go around telling everybody about how awake they are. It is usually the people that support the distraction candidate that claim to be awake. Every 4 years, they announce to the world that they are awake by getting permission from their masters to go to the polls and vote for the distraction candidate that everybody knows is not allowed to win. But now something strange is starting to happen. It doesn't happen often. In fact, it is still fairly rare. But occasionally a person that is awake to the fact that both of the primary parties are under the control of the same small group of men will actually wake up to the fact that even the distraction party belongs to this group. This recent phenomenon is quite unusual. People have always been able to see that certain denominations of the political system were not really what they claimed to be. But now we are actually seeing people wake up to the fact that the political system itself isn't even what it claims to be. People that at one time thought that the political system needed to be fixed are starting to realize that the political system can't be fixed because it has always been nothing but a fiction. I did a video a while back about civilization's trinity called the All-Seeing Eye. The all-seeing eye is the image that is on the back of the $1 bill. It represents the 3 foundation stones of civilization: the political system, also known as the government, the resource control system, also known as the economy, and the belief system, which encompasses such things as science, religion, and philosophy. Often, when someone wakes up to the fact that one of these foundation stones is a fiction, they run to one of the others looking for something that is real. I like to compare it to a prisoner that spends decades cutting through the bars of his cell just so that he can get into the next cell. The next cell may have green paint on the floor and blue paint on the ceiling, but it still isn't the same as being outdoors. People want to rule themselves, but recognize that they are ill-equipped to do so. That is why they give their obedience to one or more of these 3 systems, never realizing that obedience to one is obedience to all. It makes them feel as if they are making the choice of how to rule their lives, and in fact, civilization gives its adherents thousands of choices. We can choose to be a Republican, a carpenter, a Hindu, a Shriner, a soldier, an evolutionist. Civilization allows us to do anything that we want, as long as those things don't interfere with our absolute obeisance to the state. We already spoke of the choices that the governmental system allows us to make. We are given similar choices by the economic systems and belief systems as well. Within the economic system, we can choose to be a dairy farmer, as long as we are willing to do so on one of our master's dairy farms. We can choose to grow plants, as long as we are willing to grow them for our masters at their price, and using only the seeds which they sell to us, also at their price. We can even sell drugs for our masters, distill alcohol for our masters, build warships for our masters, and even kill people and take their gold and petroleum for our masters. As long as we don't attempt to do any of this for ourselves, and as long as we don't do anything that isn't on the approved list, we won't be sent to prison. And if we're very careful with the money that our masters give us, we can give it back to them in exchange for permission to stay on the land that we purchased from them. The belief system of civilization offers just as many choices as the economic system. Everybody is free to bend their knee or fold their hands in prayer to any deity that exists, as long as it is one of the state-sponsored, pre-approved versions of such a deity. In other words, if you worship a god that requires that you wear some kind of costume, such as a suit, attend meetings in some kind of building with a bell tower stuck on the front of it, kneel, sing songs, and reject carnal warfare, you are free to do so. The state-sponsored version of your God may have a different policy regarding the support of carnal warfare, but other than that, it will be the exact same God. If you recognize that some aspect of one of civilization's cornerstones is a fiction, that would be what I call level 1 of your awakening. Level 2 of your awakening might be when you come to the realization that the entire cornerstone is a fiction, whether it be the governmental system, the economic system, or the belief system. If you get to this point, you can pat yourself on the back. But it probably still isn't the time for you to start your own Wake Everybody Up YouTube channel. When someone actually reaches level 2, they oftentimes look to the past as a solution. Most of us have been exposed to decades of network and public education propaganda about how all of this was started by some brilliant, saintly men that wanted nothing more than the happiness of their subjects. And so, the obvious solution to someone that believes these stories would be to simply make things go back to the way that they used to be when everybody was free and prosperous. Perhaps back to the time when cotton was king. Here is where many get stuck and cannot go forward with their awakening. They simply look at the billionaire lawyers and politicians that run the world today and can't see any similarity to the millionaire lawyers and politicians that put this whole thing in motion. But if they could just adjust for inflation, they might recognize some rather uncanny similarities and ascend to level 3. As far as our enslavement goes, we did get about a 100-year reprieve due to petroleum. For a while, we could replace about 100 slaves with one slave on a tractor, combined with about a 50-slave infrastructure system to build, maintain, and provide all of the materials required to keep that tractor going. Some credit the leadership of that time for the prosperity that was brought about by the random discovery that petroleum could be used to power machinery. But at this point in history, we are pretty much back to the original situation. One slave on a tractor can still do the work of 100 men, but the infrastructure necessary to keep that tractor running now requires the other 99, mostly due to the increasingly difficult task of locating and extracting the little bit of materials that are left so that we might continue to build, maintain, and fuel tractors. As far as reducing labor goes, the benefits of technology is no longer significant. Interestingly enough, those who are not familiar with the physical laws of the universe often feel that it is technology that holds the key to solving these problems. Those that do understand the physical laws of the universe feel that a better solution might be the use of magic. But there are those that realize that there isn't any going back from this fictional system to a time when the system was real, because the system was a fiction from the day that it was established. Once someone gets to the point where they are able to figure this out, they are at level 3. Such a person is very rare indeed, and is in fact almost unique to this very small window in the stream of time. They are not the first people to recognize the fraud of civilization, but are the first members of civilization to do so. Having to undergo genocide and life in internment camps, the indigenous peoples of Africa, Eurasia, South America, North America, and Australia knew civilization was a scam from the start. It could be said that they were awake even before we were. When someone figures out that they will never benefit from one of civilization's systems, they will always turn to one of the other systems for relief. I have found over the course of my life that whatever part of civilization is the most comfortable for someone is the one part that they will not under any circumstances separate themselves from. As difficult as it is for someone to admit that part of their life was based on a fiction, it is nearly impossible to admit to ourselves that every single thing that we have ever believed is a fiction. It is almost like believing that we as a person are nothing but a fiction ourselves. Should someone ever reach the point where they are willing to admit to themselves that not just one part, but the entire scheme known as civilization is a fraud, always has been a fraud, and always will be a fraud, they would actually be at level 4 of their awakening. In my mind, I have a hard time accepting that anyone would ever actually do such a thing. But only about 3 decades ago, I was at level 2 myself, and quite proud of it. I knew for a certainty that no human alive was as enlightened as me. Now I look back in disbelief at just how ignorant I actually was. The worst part is that I actually had to spend 6 years in one of the Empire's militaries just to figure out enough to reach level 2. What a terrible price to pay for such a small bit of knowledge. I am not aware of a level 5 of wakefulness. I am always trying to keep an open mind and learn all that I can. If there is a level 5, I am hopeful that I will discover it. If I do, I promise to share that information with you no matter what the cost. If you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.